Thank you, everyone, first of all, for joining us. I know that folks will still continue to come in as we go along here, but we're excited once again to bring you programming for PhotoNOLA. This is the 16th year that PhotoNOLA has been running. Very excited for them. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is George Nobechi. I am creative director at Nobechi Creative. We handle online programming and so on for PhotoNOLA, but we also do all sorts of experiences related to photography and the arts all around the world, but specifically as well here in Japan, which is where I'm broadcasting to you from. So good morning to those who are in this time zone. I see a few of you. I see some people from Australia and so on. We're very excited to have Timothy Duffy and Freeman Vines here today in a very special talk. The theme is the documenter and the documented. We have both here with us, and so we're going to have this conversation. And yeah, there's just two things we want to mention here, of course, which is that we're bringing this programming to you free. But if you enjoy the program, there's, PhotoNOLA is run by the New Orleans Photo Alliance. They support photography in the Gulf region. They are not for profit and so on. They can use a little bit of help. So I'm putting this into the chat. And Timothy is the founder, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, of the Music Maker Foundation. And they're also a not-for-profit, and we'll get into that as well. So posting those in the chat so you're aware the two causes that we are supporting today, if you're able. If you're not, no worries. We'll just go ahead. So spotlight Freeman here, and also Timothy. So here we go. And I'm in the background here. Gentlemen, I'd like you to take it away. Maybe Timothy, you could first give us a little breadcrumb into your story by telling us how you came to meet Freeman and encounter what he was doing.
Okay, I run an organization called the Music Maker Foundation, and it's a nonprofit that helps Southern artists in the South, mostly musicians, a lot of elderly blues musicians. And a friend of mine named Lightning Wells lives in Fountain, North Carolina. It's a part of Eastern Carolina, east of Raleigh. And he told me he met this wonderful maker of instruments named Freeman Vines, and that I should go meet him. And so I got his address. I wrote a letter and said, Freeman called me, and I think we made arrangement. And I drove down. It took me about a year to get down there. And it's rural Eastern Carolina. I don't know much about the Carolina's flat like the Mississippi Delta. It's where the breadbasket of North Carolina, where they grow cotton and sweet potatoes and peanuts and I went out to this little dirt road and out into a field, and Freeman said, "Oh, thank you for coming. I've got to go to a doctor's appointment. I'll be back later." And so I was like, okay. So I set up, I traveled with a wet plate wagon, I call it. It's like a trailer that has all this stuff to do wet plate collodion. And I set up my gear, and I had this big giant camera. And I think about 3 or 4 hours later, Freeman came back, and it was such a nice gentleman, and started talking to us and welcomed me, and showed me his guitars in his little shed. And I knew I was meeting a visionary artist, and the time I spent in his yard, I knew it was the Southern Yard is a very special place for an artist. They're almost like little museums of how they arrange things. And I was just totally stricken by Freeman. And that's where I began my friendship, meeting Freeman. I took a tintype, and I showed him how a tintype was made. I don't know if anyone knows about tintype, but it's a handmade process where you pour chemicals on a piece of tin, and within 15 minutes, you have a beautiful black and white picture on a piece of tin. And I think Freeman enjoyed seeing that. I don't know, what's your opinion of that, Freeman? What is your recollection recollection.
Freeman, were you stricken with Timothy just as he was with you? Somehow I'm wondering.
Yeah, Tim came up there and everything, nice guy, and the northern accent, I had to get used to that, but at a dinner, Tim about that 10 type stuff. I had never seen that before. So I told some people about it. They said, same type of camera that they used back in the days of Jesse James. I told them about that. That didn't impress him too much, but he kept around you. Carter might have knows. I don't see how he mastered that camera. That camera got some chemicals in there would knock your socks off. But he did it anyway. And Tim took the guitars and did this and that, what it took to get it done. And I said to myself, I'll be glad when he came away from you. I actually couldn't even walk in the bone and start shed, he called it, to start with. He got him out there, and still I kept right on putting stuff in there and putting stuff in there. But other than that, Tim, a pretty good dude. I'm kind of glad he did this for me. So somebody else can see what I've done.
Well, when I walked in the shed, there was a little piece of paper with a drawing of a tree, and had a rope with a noose around a guitar. And I asked him, what are you doing here? What is this about? He says, well, I'm making hanging tree guitars. He told me that the first day. And when he said that title, Hanging Tree Guitars, I thought, what a body of work he's making. It's just incredible concept. And then he told me, tell him the story about the wood that you had there. When I met you, you had these big slabs of wood, and it was wood from a real tree that, they used to lynch people on. It's a horrific practice here in this that happened here. They would just string up people.
Yeah, I was passing by Billy Jefferson's old barn over there, and he was over there then because he won't dig at the end, but he died later on. And I was gonna get some wood from the outside of the barn, but he said something in there, so I looked at it, and I got interested in something. Just as I was putting it on my shoulder cat to the truck, he told me, he said, you might not want that wood there. I said, because a man was hung on that tree. I kicked it off as not being true and this and that right there, but told Tim about it, and daggone, Tim went and found out that the man sure was hung up there. Found out the man's name, when he was hung, and everything. I said, dang. And then the wood developed a character of its own when I went to working on it. Some was supernatural about it. Nobody don't believe it, but you got to mess around it and mess with it to find out that something strange going to happen to you in your head. At least it did me. But I never thought that the man, I really didn't think he was telling the truth, but Tim dug so deep and everything till there wasn't no way he could lie. He was in the newspaper and stuff. So it's a fact that the man did die on there. He did.
And since the book has come out, we have met other people in its community that confirm that their family has some of that wood. So I guess, when the tree was like a totem of terror, and the families that lynched this guy actually cut the tree down after it died and separated the wood. It's crazy when you think about it, but we didn't find that out till recently. But but what Freeman, the shapes, the wood spoke to Freeman, and Freeman said the blood was in the land, and so the blood must be in the wood, and so the spirit of his ancestors are in the wood. And so that's the picture of the first day I took him, and he said hanging tree guitars. I made that little rig, and that's the portrait I took. And when I looked at the tintype, when I came up, I saw all those shapes, and I knew he was a well-read man because there's, you know, the shape of some of those guitars are, you know, shapes of West African masks. And if you're a guitar nut like I am, every guitar is pretty much the same shape. Gibson, and each individual guitar shape is individualized.
Yeah, it's certainly striking on many levels. I mean, I have the book here as well. I think I was telling Freeman and Tim earlier. I don't know if I'm the first book order from Japan, but probably not.
It might be.
But remarkable. I think what was the number you said, Tim? 5,000 copies already.
5,000 copies in like 8 months we sold.
That's incredible. You know. Especially for an art book in this day and age. That's great. So we applaud that, and so on. I was going to scroll through a couple of these, and if you had any that you wanted to, in particular, that you wanted to talk about here, the stories behind them. So I love some of these quotes that you have in here, Freeman, about, you know, your words, and I know you had a collaborator and so on with that, but talk to me a little bit about maybe how you, I don't know, come up with these thoughts. Are these just sort of things you're thinking about all the time, or?
Now, what the deal, I mean, what happened is the wood, once you start messing with it, it ain't gonna do nothing laying over there by itself. You'll find out it kind of inspires you to do stuff to it that you wouldn't ordinarily do. And then some of the wood got their own forms and shapes in there, but the average man can't see it. It's a spiritual thing when you see it. And then you go there messing with it, whittling, carving, and doing things to it. And here come the feature it try to show you. And if you listen at it, it'll come out right. But if you try to do it what you want to do, it'll come out wrong. Wood ain't just something laying there dead and everything. I don't know how to explain it, but it'll take over for a while now. And you can desire to do this to it and that to it, but most of the time you have to leave it alone and go back in a different state of mind, and it comes out like it wants to. First, you'll say to yourself, "Hey, I done messed this wood here up," and then somebody else will come along and say, "Oh, so that's pretty cool there. Maybe that looks good," and then you'll start to see it for it as it is. But each piece of wood got a different character. You can't just walk right in a lumber yard and get planks and all that stuff like that. Some of it like a mule trough. And a guy told me, he said, that wood there ought to be in good shape, said, because when the mules eat the cone and the hair in the trough, they slop. And he claimed it taking do something to the wood. Didn't bother me none. The wood had a character of its own. I enjoyed working with it, and that was it. And that hanging tree wood had done a little something to me about the wood that had never happened before. And anybody that mess with it will find out. Got good tonal quality too. I might not wire it up right, put the right pickups up there, but they'll play. Sure will. I might have took a Tim stepped up in the picture and stuff, and got a whole lot of things I thought I know I didn't know. I know it in my way, but I didn't know it in the way that folks will know what I was talking about. Some folks claim they don't understand what I'm saying on kind of they call it the Southern accent.
Well, Freeman, that's very interesting what you say about wood and the character and the spirit that they have. Over here in Japan as well, wood is similarly revered. So we've got ancient trees all over Japan that are deemed to be deities. You know, they're like spiritual gods. They have a rope around them to protect them. And so you have 1,000, 1,200-year-old trees and so on all over Japan where they make shrines to them. So
wow.
it's and those who do work with wood as well talk of a similar thing of like the character of each piece of wood that they work with, whether they're wood carvers or so on. And, you know, you have to adapt to that. You've got to be able to listen to what the wood is telling you. So that's very remarkable that all the way around the world, there's a similar sort of approach when it comes to the special qualities that wood does have.
That you mentioned it about Japan. I bought a piece of wood from a guy. Now I know he didn't speak y'all language good, cause actually he was a nut like I'm here. He named the wood hum wali. I don't know what that is, but I know one thing. We ain't got no saw blades over here and cut it. Well, they'll cut it, but you have to buy so many to do it, cause it gums up on that resin. And I found out later on it was a type of ebony or something. People have named it everything, but he called it hum something. Anyway, I got a little piece of wood around here somewhere, but that's the hardest wood I ever seen in my life.
Freeman, you were telling me the other day that the trees talk to each other. I was trying to hear that, but I haven't heard them talk. But Freeman was telling me, I asked him what he's doing. He's out there listening to the trees talk. And I never thought about trees talking to one another, that they actually have relationships between them.
If you'll ever go out there with the wind blowing, you got to be in a form of meditation and listen at the trees and look at them so you see where the sound comes from. No two trees with the same wind blowing through them at the same speed and everything. They no two trees got the same tone. And if you listen long enough, you can hear things that you dare not tell people because they'll think you're foolish, root doctors and all that stuff like that. But yeah, they talk. They communicate. Folks don't believe it, but trees communicate. They are alive. They're not just dead objects due to wouldn't grow.
Mm-hmm. Now, Tim and Freeman, maybe you could, if you see the screen here, tell us a little bit about these sketches as well.
I just noticed these sketches laying around, and Freeman doesn't revere them. They'll be laying on the floor, or this is an old manila envelope. This is one of a series with a hanging skull. There's one with a guitar. And this other one's his notebook where it has different designs for guitars. Then I realized that Freeman is not just a folk artist, he's a very fine visual artist. He pre-visualizes his work, you know, and I know I'll sketch it on the wood and look at it. So very much like a contemporary artist will. It's, you know, he's thinking about shapes all the time through sketching. I thought that's why I included these and took pictures of them.
I mean, get my glasses and see what I'm looking at. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I had to kind of get away from that taste because I got to messing around with a couple of a warlock and a witch one time, and weird things happened to my head when I started messing with pencils and stuff. Yvonne and David Frost. Seems strange, people claim they don't know them, and they told me they were real famous folks from Salem, Massachusetts.
Well, these people he's talking about, David and Yvonne Frost, are the founders of the Wicca movement. The Wicca Church is the only church in the United States that's recognized for like black magic and that kind of stuff. And I find it remarkable that Freeman knew the founders and he studied the occult with those guys, which is fascinating. They're very big in that movement here in America.
They do some weird things. They're weird enough that I don't want to bother with no more. And sure don't.
That's the shop he was talking about when I first met him. His little 10 by 10 shed.
Exactly what it is, a shed.
Beautiful photograph. Yeah.
When you work in a big place like this here, you can't go to Max book and like that and work no more.
And this is interesting. This guitar here, I realized he never sold these guitars. And this one was made of an old barn step. And he had said that he had made this in 1963. So it was a very old piece, and it was just kind of laying around the yard, and found it under a piece of linoleum. And what I struck, everything that Freeman made had a purpose. Though he wasn't interested in regular wood. If it was a step that a farmer had gone up into a barn, that had more meaning to him than a fancy piece of wood ordered through a catalog. And so, and these are all the sides. And you go to shop, he finishes, many guitars are for finishing, and a lot of guitars are just shapes. And you'll go in a space and they're constantly being all these shapes of wood, and they move around his yard or his shop in piles. That was a pile that day. So I took a photo of the pile. Yeah, piled them up.
Now, Timothy, just going back to the subject at hand, as someone who is in the position of documenting, this story, it's remarkable how you have accounted for all these little detail shots and things like that. How did you go about that process in terms of deciding ways of framing things, and what was also important for you to tell the story for you?
Like Freeman said, at one point, Freeman had a lot of people were coming around when I published that first photo, and it got kind of on the internet, and a lot of people started coming around Freeman's place and taking his stuff and stealing it. So I asked Freeman, I said, let's do an exhibition, and would you be kind enough, if you trust me, can I take it back to my studio so we can safeguard this? And so I lived with the art for, say, 6 months or so, just looking at it. And I took color pictures, and I took all sorts of photographs. Then I thought the wet plate collodion really spoke, and I could do a nice catalog shot with well lit and showing all these different beautiful shapes. But then this piece right here, how do I evoke that nature of the occult imagery and the spiritual nature of what I thought these pieces? And like even a shape like that, to me, reminds me of a lot of West African art I've seen, and how Freeman is floating in space and time, and living with this. And how could I take a picture that would take a viewer right there without having to sit with this for 6 months if you're uninitiated to his art? And so I just wanted to take his words and the photographs to create an image, very romantic, image of what I perceived. My experience of understanding what Freeman was doing, so it'd help others see it quicker than I did. I'm dumb. It took me a while to figure it out. I had to sit with Freeman for months to really get it, and make lots of recordings of his voice and listen to it over and over to condense a story that could be told. That's what I was trying to do. But maybe just explain it to myself. Like if I could explain it to myself, I really wasn't worried about anybody else. If I could look at it and know it was good, and it captured a thought that I was thinking about, then I was satisfied. That really, that's the end.
And then we have these other images as well, Tim, that you've made that are sort of give us not only a sense of place, but also a sense of the world that Freeman is in. And so many of these images are very much haunting. We have this sort of like this photograph where in the background we have this completely cleanly swept and kept road that's pristine. Everything is in place and everything. And then in the fields, and then we come forward and we have these remains, just like looks like a chimney left from the building. Remarkable, I think, the way you juxtapose those seamlessly in your work. So,
and that was like the site where that awful lynching happened, and I thought that was interesting that was still the spirit of what happened was still there. And what they say in the South, the past is not even past. The past is now. We can't escape our past. The past is with us. In the future and the past are one thing. And so I thought where the site of the lynching, that there was a burned down house, kind of said that to me. So that's what I felt when I took that picture.
Mm-hmm.
Freeman as a young man, yeah.
Freeman, were you very popular with the ladies when you were young?
Well, if you hang in the shot houses, you can play a tune or two and be slick enough to wait till they get back drunk and everybody else singing at the same time. Yeah, the women be all over you. But some of them, not to bother with because they had boyfriends, and you know how the shot house stuff was.
Yeah.
Totally different than it is now. So that place would be packed with young brown folks. Mm-hmm. And now you can't even get 5 or 6 people in the house. Got folks ski. Oh, I forgot about the virus. They got it right. Ski.
Mm-hmm. So I thought, intersperse that little bit of humor there, but then also, there's this other side of it. I just wanted to try and, look at the two. But you write here that being in Greene County was one of the worst places you wanted to live at in that day and time. I mean, if you're able, would you be able to share with us a little bit about what that experience was like for you?
Yeah, in the late 40s and 50s on through there to up in the 60s, Greene County was a bad place. They had, may not been all that bad now because folks lived there. And folks lived to be over. But the way I saw it, they had each man, the big wigs, they had what they call plantations. Now they call them farms and stuff. But they would build a big house and put them a bell up there to ring when you go to work, ring when you eat dinner, and ring when you quit and stuff. Some of the old houses are still standing. The Raspberry Plantation, the Hopper Plantation, and the houses have been there since. I don't even think no cars were around when they were built. And I found that got to bother me a little bit about the bathroom. And I was talking to an old dude, I think his name Frank. He told me, he said, the big wigs always had inside facilities. I ain't figured out yet how they could have and didn't have no running water. I had to put that on the back burner till I really think about it real good. But
I think you mentioned about the Klan back then, Freeman, growing up with the Ku Klux Klan in that Greene County.
Yeah, they were bad over there, and they had certain things they would do for the folks who lived on the farm who worked themselves to death for them, the Klan. But there was an old guy over there one day, he used the bathroom behind their back of them. They killed the back with wood then. And the lady went around there before he finished. And she come back screaming that he had exposed himself to it. Everything calmed down. Nobody else didn't think about that. I was real young then. My mother said that someone I didn't see, but I did. And all them truckloads of men, pickup truck, took an old 80, I think he was 80, maybe 81-year-old man, tied him behind one of the pickups and drug him till it wasn't nothing but the top part of the torso up there and everything, and killed him. And then name was Joe Black. And then the woman said that she think Eddie done killed him. I think he was just around there using the bathroom. What could an 80-year-old man do? And he died. He killed him. And the family, they dispersed, went in and dad and everything because they was scared. I don't know what happened to them. Met one of the guys. He said that was some of his relatives, but he didn't want to talk about it too much. Yeah, Greene County was a rough place. Certain parts in it. Because see, at this point in time, you didn't have nowhere to travel, nothing but a mule and cart. You might go to Snow Hill or Lizard or Castodian. That's about before you went. And at that point in time, I had never seen farming. Sure didn't. Yeah, that was a terrible place. I would love to go there and just, but they won't let you do it though, cause now folks, you know, they just won't let you mess around them old plantation houses. I think Greene County about the only place still got them standing in living order. They ain't fell down on that. The only way to keeping them up, I don't know what to deal with.
Now, Freeman, Tim has told me a little bit about how you've taken those like unspeakable experiences and so on, but you've become something of a bridge, reaching out in your community and talking about things that people didn't want to talk about, certainly at least not in the open and things like that. Maybe Tim and Freeman, you can have a little conversation about that.
Well, when Freeman first started talking about it, he told me he was scared to issue this book because the Poobahs, which that means the Ku Klux Klan members, said he had to live there. And I felt bad because I didn't live there and he had to live there, and people get treated badly. So Freeman introduced me to some of the leaders of the Ku Klux Klan, and I went and talked to them and said Freeman's going to do this book, and what do you think about it? And they're actually happy that he was going to do a book. They were interested in Freeman and they respected him. I think they're scared of him too, more than I don't know what that is, but the main thing is there was a lynching 100 years ago, and Freeman was the first guy in his community to talk about it openly. It took over 100 years for someone of the black race, the African American race, to say, over there, someone was lynched. And people on the white side said their one thing, the people on the black side said the thing, but no one was talking to each other about it. And so since the book has come out, a lot of the community, we had an exhibition in Greenville, and it had record attendance from the most record attendance of people of color, most record attendance of people from out of state. But from both sides, people came, and people in the community have bought the book. And so if we can't discuss these things, how are we going to move forward, even though no matter what side you're on? So I think Freeman's book he's a very brave spirit to, and takes an artist, I think, to sometimes tell these stories of things that people don't want to talk about, or they want to forget and put in the past, but the past is never past, so it's always there. So if we can't get to the next place unless we talk about it. So I just think Freeman, in my opinion, is like a Bob Marley freedom. He's a spiritual freedom fighter. And with all this talk about race today, I think through Freeman's art, we can come to a better place and discuss these issues in a nice way. That's my opinion. I don't know what Freeman thinks about that, but he did it. He puts a lot on me, but there wouldn't be a story unless there was a story to tell. And so I was just happened to be the one to be able to put it together and put it in a book form.
Freeman, did you have any thoughts on that or to add?
Yeah, he might have right about it. The book did exactly opposite of what I thought it was going to do. The folks that they enjoy reading it and stuff, and I don't think I approached it in a discriminatory fashion, but anyway, they even the Klansmen and folks like that, they seem to enjoy it. Cause men to the store out there, I took, asked me where could he get one. I told them over there to Elliot Place and everything, and they ain't nobody mad about it. Just as nice as it can be. I'll tell you one thing, when I had my eyeball took out, do you know who the folks were who came and helped me? They were white ladies, and they still do it. And it's remarkable. They wasn't even mad about the book. I think it was done just right so that nobody won't talk about nobody and pointing no fingers and toting flags and stuff. And I'm real tickled at the way it worked out. Real tickled. But without the help of the professional people, see, men with a third grade education, they probably would done crack my skull on to see what my brain was all about. It helps when you got educated people to tell you, say, yo, so that's wrong. I wouldn't do this and that right there. You ain't got to get out and politicize it because educated people like to keep a low profile. And I found out I've learned a whole lot of stuff from Tim and his crowd. A lot of stuff. I can mingle with the big wigs now and I don't have no problem. But used to I had a problem because the way that folks claim the way I talk, I don't know what he's talking about. What is he saying? But I found out that big wigs don't care how you talk. It's what you say that counts, the way I look at it.
Well, it's remarkable. I like coming from Japan, where things are, I've lived in the U.S. too, in New York and Arizona and New Mexico and so on. But it just seems like such a world away. Like here in Japan, where obviously we just had the 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor, so it's not as though there weren't things in the past that Japan has to acknowledge and all of that too. But just in terms of living with the past is the present and all of that, and you're living with that every day. It is something that sometimes maybe in storytelling and so on, we do as the viewer, at least I do, take for granted sometimes. And, the world, owes you a debt of gratitude for having the courage to bring this conversation, to put the book out as well, and to have this important dialogue, I think. So just wanted to say thank you for that to both of you, but Freeman in particular.
Yes. Bravo, Freeman.
So here's an image that
I love that one.
Yes, so maybe Tim, you could talk a little bit about that.
Freeman kept telling me that he didn't know where his ancestors were buried. All the white people had cemeteries, but there was no cemeteries for the slaves. And he wondered where they was buried. And then all these pieces of wood, he said, had the spirit of his ancestors in them because they are found objects on the land and they have the spirit of their blood in them. And though this is a sweet potato field, I was next to his house, and the dirt is real soft. You can you just stick your hand down like 3 or 4 feet. And these are a bunch of the guitars. And my son Lucas and I had this vision, maybe I should set them out in the field and take a picture. I just had that thought for a couple of weeks. And my son Lucas and I went down there and we put those out in the field, and Freeman was having a gout attack and he was scared because I didn't know about the land he was on. I was just coming in, just doing whatever, person of privilege. I'm going to do whatever I want. But one side of the field is he's friends with one farmer, And the other side of the field is owned by a clans guy, you know, a big poobah. And I would get in big trouble if I even walked on his land. And Freeman wouldn't even come out there. So I ran out there and took these pictures, and my son comes out, says, Freeman says, you really need not to do that picture. The guy's coming with the truck. You better run. And the guy drove by in truck and smiled. And I guess Freeman could tell his side of the story, but I got this picture and I'm glad I did. There's a series of him walking and standing in these pictures, but you could really see how his shapes fit with the landscape. And that was why I took the picture. Freeman, do you remember that day?
Yeah, I remember it good, because me and Luther were ready to shake some tail feathers, but you kept on putting them out there, kept right on and everything, and went around doing what you wanted to do, what you had to do, stuff like you said. The man didn't even care. The man wouldn't even like people said he would. And I had done judge it. They call him all kind of bad names, but man wasn't even like that. He didn't even care. And me and Luther, we kind of got uneasy and wanted to split, but Tim didn't listen. He kept on putting guitars like that. Sure did. And as I looked at it one day, it actually, if you look at it right, it actually looked like some people bent over and some people sitting down, and depending on how you look at it. Some folks say my mind warped, but I see things different than other folks. And
to me, it looks like your family have built, and it made me understand why Freeman never sold these. He haven't sold these things. He gave a couple to his brother-in-law, but these are like family members to Freeman. I mean, some of these guitars have been with him since 1959. I mean, that's remarkable. And that's 70 years of that's a man's body of work that just kept around him.
And the way you display them and employ the service of that camera, and the way you had done it. When that woman told me that photographers don't see, she told me more times than one. She said, photographer does not see things. Well, you, me, for him. She said, they don't see things like you do. I said, they don't. She said, no. So I'm a photographer. So I see things different than you. And she talked and told me stuff about this and that right there. And I began to start looking at stuff with a different eye. But I had to go right back to my old eye, because I would forget about trying to see what she saw. But anyway, photographers don't see stuff like that every man. I know that for a fact, because the way them guitars are put out there, who would have ever thought of that? I wouldn't have never thought about it. I may pile them up and either lay them down, but they're in order. They is in order. Fine piece of photography. They dag and double dag.
Tim, you want to tell us about this one?
Oh, that's I do self-portraits.
Yeah.
And I guess in the book, I didn't want to have my voice in the book whatsoever, but my publisher said we had to acknowledge who I was and in my voice. So in the book, you have a conversation, mostly it's Freeman's words, and it's a narration by my friend, the folklorist Zoe Van Buren, who snakes it all together. And the book's kind of a conversation between Freeman and I at parts. And then this is just me on view on photography. Like a lot of photographers, I'm a student of photography, and think of Henry Cartier-Bresson, the decisive moment. I've lived that, tried to do that. And then, Ansel Adams to visualize, pre-visualize what you're gonna do. And hanging out with Freeman, like that shot the other day of the pre-spiritualized, like how it's a spiritual moment when everything comes together and you can take that picture of a guitar in the fields. If I tried, I couldn't take that picture again. It's gone. I've chased pictures after I've given up. Took me years to learn not to chase something I got once, because you're just, even that day with there, it's just wonderful. Especially with wet plate collodion photography, you're out all day and you maybe only take 2 or 3 pictures, because it, takes a couple hours to set up, and, takes a long time to set up the camera. And once you start the process of taking a picture, it takes 15 minutes or 20 minutes. And you set up the light and the clouds, and the light's not any good. So the plates, it's a mess, really. It's a crazy way to take pictures. But when you get it, it's really fulfilling. It makes you feel great.
Yes, and the quote that we're looking at here, or the text rather, is appropriate for both of you, I think, on that, right? And the processes of making the instruments as well as photographing the way you did.
And yeah, not using your hands to make something, because like Freeman will talk about it, when he cuts wood, a mistake actually turns out to be something, you have to go with it. And that's same thing with wet plate collodion or hand alternative photography, even digital photography. Any photography could be an accident. You just have to move around with it. All the beautiful shapes.
One thing as I go through, Tim, that you touched on, you mentioned in passing when you sort of showed up and you were, photographing and so on, and you talked about your privilege and things like that coming into that, the community and so on. Could you talk a little bit about the feelings that you had in, like, sort of internal conflicts you may have felt, or things like that, about the process as the documenter?
The first period with Freeman, for the first 5 years, it was very much just me and Freeman and a few people, and it was very special. It was like talking about all these very controversial things, or and I could just take them in a very safe spot, because that was, Freeman owned that land, or it's his spot, and it was a safe spot to have a conversation. And so I was privileged. I was just privileged that he was giving that conversation to me and my friends, and privileged, like even in this picture, when he's falling asleep, to set up my lights and gear in this little shack and taking pictures, like utter trust between us, him and me. And that was privilege. And that shot says how close Freeman let me in as a friend. And then when you're entrusted with that kind of access to someone's life and his thoughts, what to do with that, and how to tell that story to the rest of the world, or get that story told. And then, in not knowing the cultural memory of the landscape, there's places where Freeman doesn't want to get out of the car, and I just get out of the car and walk around. He don't want to get out of the car. There's places still that Freeman will not go, because it's ingrained there in his little town. There's places you don't go. And when he tells me why they don't go, well, I wouldn't go there either if, that awful thing happened. I wanted that memory. So you use that too, to your effect, to go to different places that on both sides, white and black or yellow, being an outsider, I can go through and not think about it, and observe. This is all that numerology Freeman's into. That's great stuff. This is a highly technical picture I'm very proud of. That's shot in daylight with flash, but beautiful. They're like Alan Gurganus says, Freeman's guitars are sacred relics. He makes antiques. When he finishes an object, it's you can't age it. It's already timeless. You know, that's what I thought about these two pieces. Those are art pieces, aren't they? They're just, how does he do that?
Freeman, I have a question for you. When you've made these pieces and you know, some of them you made in the 50s or 60s or so on, and you've kept them. With time, how do those pieces evolve or change for you? Like you talked about the spirit that each piece of wood has. Does the personality or character of these guitars that you make change over time, like with weathering or other things for you? What's that relationship like?
Well, they change in older period of time, and then you lose interest in them when you get interested in something else, some other type of music. But you always want them around to keep them in your comfort zone, like people do when they hoard and stuff. And some of them means a lot till you get used to it, and some of them don't. But they always, long as they are around, well, not now particularly, but as long as they were around, I was in my comfort zone.
In that picture where you saw in the yard before, that's how it was. Guitars were just laying around the yard like this for years, you know, just, you know, he worked outside and left them outside. They weren't stored inside, you know, just guitars would lay on the ground for, I have no idea. That's why when he got well known, we had to kind of take care of it because they were disappearing and we didn't like that.
Again, some monsters up there. Never found out what that Celtic design was. I ain't even think about that no more. I said I won't think about it, and there I'm looking at it, and that guy that never come back. I'm about to think he might have been an extraterrestrial dude.
Huh. And these guitars, see how he made them outside and they clamp them outside. So, but I discovered if it rained, then guitars took a long time to make because if it rained, the wood would get wet and he couldn't sand or working on it. So he'd have to wait till it dries and he'd work on it a little bit, but then it might rain again. Then you can't work on it for a while. I never saw a woodworker work totally outside and so in harmony with nature and how he worked the wood. You know, the patience is remarkable. That's one of the hanging tree guitars that he's making there. Oh, that's the first thing I saw that day, that when he told me the title. That's what blew me away. And I'd say to the audience, these guitars, some are made to be seen and some are remarkable sounding. These are made to be played. They're wonderful sounding instruments, incredible sounding instruments. Some of the best, finest electric guitars I've ever played. And each one is a totally unique sound. Tell them about the sound you're chasing, Freeman, what you're doing with the sound. That's an interesting story.
Well, I ain't found it yet, but I ain't even heard it no more since that incident when I walked outside my shop out down 264. And I heard about a man, I don't know what TV, might have been TV, maybe in my imagination, but somebody was on TV interviewing somebody had experienced the same thing, but in a different manner. But the sound seemed like the whole body would have sounded. Seemed like I had absorbed the sound. It felt so daggone good. And then I started seeking that sound because I wanted to feel good and somebody else to hear it, but I never heard it. And I ain't found it no more. I sure wish I could. I would like to hear just one note on it. when it pinged the whole, I mean, feel like you can feel the whole sound. Hard to explain, but that's the way it is in my noggin. Sure wish I could hear it again.
Now, Tim, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your foundation. I'm going to switch my screen share while we do that. And so maybe if you could talk a little bit about that. We can come back to more pictures in a little bit, folks. But yeah, I'm going to do that. But you go ahead and start talking.
Okay, the Music Maker Foundation was founded in 1994. It's a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping what we call the true pioneers and forgotten heroes of Southern music. And a lot of blues artists, Native American, gospel, jazz, and how we tend to the roots of American music. When the America was born in the South, enslaved people were brought over, and the music that was created in the South, you know, starting with gospel music and on, is the greatest export our country has given to the world. There's not one world popular music, I would argue, that's unaffected by the music that was created in the South. And a lot of people, the people who created this music were people like Freeman Vines, just working class folks that made music Saturday nights in the juke joints and Sunday in church. And still, if you go in small communities and small Southern towns throughout the South, you'll find people that didn't get a chance to have a record deal and didn't get known. And does that mean because you're never were famous that you're less important? I would say no. Culture is the most important thing, and you can't kill culture. And you have to nourish where you're coming from. If you don't know where you're coming from, future generations won't know who they are. And so we've helped artists with sustenance grants. A lot of the artists we work with are living on $7,000 to $10,000 a year. So a simple grant of $100 or $200 a month is life-changing in getting prescription medicine. We do professional development and help artists record. We've helped record over 200 CDs for artists. Education, where we do touring. You know, we've toured, 200 shows a year, 150 shows a year until the pandemic, all over the world, all throughout Australia, South America, Europe, throughout the United States. And this is a great project. This is Freeman Vines' sister. There's this great gospel music, which we call Sacred Soul. And it's a great record out. And it's a kind of music that is only heard in small rural Black churches in Eastern Carolina and South Carolina. It's never had a wider audience. But you go to listen to that music and the people that play it, it's full of free thinkers like Freeman. And you think about it, people like jazz artists like Thelonious Monk and John Coltrane came from this area. Or I would think a great contemporary perhaps of Freeman would have been Sun Ra. These people who really think about their life. And so, and that's what our mission is, to sustain it with helping with checks for food, to make the unseen be seen, and to educate our fellow man about the great talent that lives amongst us. And you don't have to go buy tickets, $300 tickets for a Broadway show or $500 to go see the Rolling Stones. It could be as simple as going to a simple church or a juke joint or a little club and hearing locals play, and you might be just blown away by the talent that you can hear. Freeman Vines' best friend, his brother-in-law, Johnny Ray Daniels, he turned me on to him, is arguably the greatest electric rhythm guitar player alive today. This incredible talent. And we have an album coming out, his Bible and Tire Records is coming out later this year. So you go to our website, you can learn of biographies, you can learn stories, and hopefully it could lead everyone for a journey of discovery. And so Music Makers in Place, when we meet someone as important as Freeman Vines, it's our mission to let the world know his important story, so generations from now we can know from him and the important lessons he lived. I'll never know what it is to pick tobacco all day, moonshine all night, gamble all weekend, and come up with art somewhere on the side and become a great artist. You know, all the time that your neighbor might be lynched and you're not allowed to go in the front of a store to eat a burger. And so that's what the Sacred Soul and Freeman represent. How do these people face incredible adversity and inhumanity and show us something more beautiful than anything we could have thought of before through music and visual arts? That's a testament to the human spirit. You know, you cannot kill it. We did our best to kill it, and whatever you do, the artist will prevail and show us why we were wrong and how more beautiful life is than that.
If you're able to spare a little bit to contribute this year to the Music Maker Foundation, that's much appreciated. Also, I'm just going to add here, of course, this program is made possible by PhotoNOLA. If you go to photonola.org/2021, and I'll post that in a second here, you'll be able to see a lot of the programs that are being done. There's so much happening. If you go to the Find Events page, you'll see that, and of course, there are many in-person events happening in New Orleans, but there's so many that are happening offline. So, sorry, online, excuse me. I wish it was all happening, you know, in person and offline, but we make do. And also we can reach people from around the world. I know that some people are tuning in from Japan, Australia, other places today. And we do have another free talk coming up on Saturday at 7 p.m. With Zalmai, who is a wonderful documentary photographer. He's from Afghanistan. He himself a refugee to Switzerland when he was younger. And his work from Afghanistan, talking about the present state of affairs there and so on. So we have that. And I also mentioned that, you know, we have one virtual workshop, and that is about selling your art, if you are interested in that. So I'll post a link to that here shortly as well. We'll go back to sharing pictures, but I just wanted to say as well, of course, PhotoNOLA is also run by the New Orleans Photo Alliance, which supports photographers in the whole Gulf region of the United States. And they need our support as well, especially as, you know, the hurricane this year affected a lot of the originally planned programming. So anything you're able to contribute for their programs, that's much appreciated. These are made free. We at Nobechi Creative always love supporting photography and the arts. So that's why we try to do this with our partners around the world. And yeah, so I'm gonna stop the screen share here, and I'll go back to showing more pictures here at the end, but just wanted to make sure one thing here that I don't forget, which is also, I've posted so far the links for the book, the Music Maker Foundation, as well as PhotoNOLA, and also, of course, Tim's work as well, through A Gallery in New Orleans, probably the place to go. Tim and I somehow are, Tim is I get to exhibit in the same gallery as Tim, and
great.
so that's always exciting. But this is where you can find Tim's work. And if Eddie Hebert is listening, I just wanted to say thank you for putting us together in touch. I see Eddie is in the room, so thank you very much for.
And there's there's a picture of Freeman's hands. That's a print I donated to the PhotoNOLA of Freeman's hands, and Eddie, I think they're selling them for $100 a piece to raise money for PhotoNOLA. It's that beautiful shot of the smoky guitar hands of Freeman. So if you want to, that's a wonderful way to support PhotoNOLA as well.
Yes, I've got it right here from the Collectors Club. So I'm putting the link right here. So that's where you can find this beautiful print of Freeman and his hands with the guitar by Tim. And wow, for $100 plus shipping, that's great. That's wonderful, and that goes in support of PhotoNOLA as well. So, right, I'm gonna go back to
beautiful paper too. It's a beautiful print.
Again, we'll take the time here to just thank everybody who has been in attendance. Thank you for tuning in today, this evening, or this morning, depending on where you are in the world. And we'll just continue the conversation here sort of for a few more minutes. So if you have to run off, I know that there's a gala happening in New Orleans at the moment. So if you have to run off, we'll see you soon. And yeah, otherwise, we'll just continue talking about some of these remarkable photographs.
Yeah. Oh, that's a scary one. Oof.
Did you want to talk about the one before here?
Oh, no, that was the mule slobber guitar he was talking about earlier.
Right. Okay.
MS mule slobber. That was from the hanging tree wood, that one before. Oof, that's a kind of Dada.
These are such remarkable designs, Freeman.
Yeah, they look pretty rough now, but that's the way they come out.
So looking at this photograph, I mean, I guess there are other things that you carve in addition to the guitars as well, like this, or?
Yeah, there's been some more stuff whittled and knocked off on that hanging tree. Some of it came out almost like it would, but I cleaned it up, and what that needed to be enhanced, I've done that to it, and I already know what it will be, you know, but that's the way it ended up. They kind of sometimes the saw have a mind of their own.
That's in my studio. I started looking at them.
Fine looking backdrop you got there, as Ms. Smith called them.
Yeah. I printed it out for Freeman for a backdrop.
It looks pretty good. Just like a man laying back in a pile of guitar.
Yeah.
Wow, what a comforting feeling.
Ooh, that's the tobacco field next to his house. Tell the story about this. This is an interesting story. That's one of the last pieces. An homage to Alvin Moore, the guy that was hung. His shoe story, Freeman. Tell that story.
Yeah, mighty strange about that. That piece of wood laying on the porch where you say, what you gotta do with that? I started beating on the edge, you left, and the bottom part of it fell out first. I kept whooping it, and then the top part fell out, and I said, Dad, set it on top of each other, there was a shoe. So I went on and did my little thing to it and everything and showed it to you. And you told me, said that, well, not in these same words, but anyway, that the dude messed with shoes, and Dad, the shoe came out. It was a knot on a piece of wood. But when it got to beating around on it, came out and took the bark off of it and sanded it here and there to make it look better and stuff, and a daggone shoe. How about that? A knot, a wood knot. Actually, might have been where somebody shot it or chopped it, but it healed itself and then in the shape of a shoe. Same tree the dude was hung on.
But it seemed like Alvin came back before the first images were so scary of the spirit of the guy that got lynched, or where we thought the spirit of the wood. But this wood, it seemed like he came back and he seemed more happier with us or something, or his shoe appeared. That was weird.
It sure was. It was strange because that piece of wood that laid out there been rained on, snowed on, and I never even thought about hitting the knot. I just figured out, well, this ain't good for nothing. But the knot came out in the shape of a shoe. And it would surprise me a wee bit too, but I was right good and articulate everything went together. And if you look at it real hard, you can tell a whole lot of quilting wasn't done on it. It just cleaned up the bad areas in a knot where they had a little riding disc and a little bit of that and everything, and there it was. Because I added on a little piece in there to make it look like a leg. It came out real good. I was mighty tickled.
There's a place, if anyone comes to the South, and I don't know if Freeman hasn't been there, in Montgomery, there's a EJI, and they have what they call the Lynching Museum, and have a hanging memorial stones for, I don't know how many, 5,000 people that documented got lynched, or I forget the number, but I think that's something now that's happening. They were unnamed lynchings, and people didn't forget. What Freeman's doing here is, making homage to Alvin Moore that was lynched, and a little sculpture of that, and giving these people that suffered just horrible, torturable deaths, and it's a period we have to, what Freeman's doing is giving them names and making us think about what happened and who they were. And they were people, neighbors and fathers and husbands that were taken from their families. And even if it's 100 years later, that Freeman's giving them a name and artwork in their name out of the wood that they're hung from, it's just a great thing we need to do. And yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you, Freeman.
So with this photograph, there's been a question from the audience from Elizabeth. Freeman, how many guitars do you reckon you've made? Roughly speaking.
I have no idea. Tim that took me well, several times, but sometimes the memory don't work so well. But he read many of them. But how many, I don't exactly know the number. I ain't counting them. But he told me exactly how many there were. I just read it this minute here. I don't know what it is.
We've collected about close to 125, but then there's a period in the 90s where all those guitars were lost. He said they were in storage and we lost. So who knows how many, decks, what we have in the collection is a little over 100 and something, but then I'm sure he's made more because in some houses he had to leave he was telling me the other day, he had a shop, he had to leave pretty quickly. So I'm sure things have been left behind. In a year's time, I see Freeman make about 5 to 7 complete guitars and maybe 30 different shapes that don't become guitars, that are just shapes, but I think they're important artwork. So every waking moment he's feeling good. He's working ever since I've known him. He's always been doing this. I guess how long have you been doing it full time, Freeman? About 20 years? How long, when did you go back to the farm just to start working on guitars?
It's been quite a while. It's a period of time that I kind of got a little bit confused with. Women were warming to death then, but it's been quite a while that been messing with them. Full time it was when I took let me see now, about 9, maybe 10 or 11 years, somewhere in that area.
But these are the pieces that are around his yard and to be put up, and I think find them as beautiful as the guitars. And he'll have them just laying against a tree, and he'll say something like, "I love that saying. I ain't found myself yet, but I'm finding a part of me." Then he'll come out with a line like that. They'll keep me going for weeks. Wondering, wow, that was a beautiful thing to say, someone.
Mm-hmm. And such a musical image, like a treble clef. Yeah, beautiful. And yeah, so the book, if I can get it in Japan, you can get it anywhere.
That's amazing that you got it in Japan. You hear that, Freeman? He ordered it and went to Japan. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm listening to that.
And that any photographers that are out there, just shows you can do it. That was, a self-published book. We did it ourselves, and Amazon and our site. Got 50-50. So it's an interesting part of publishing. If you period, you can get stuff out there to Japan without a big publishing house. That just is mind-blowing.
Okay, well, put the spotlight back on you two gentlemen fully there, and just wanted to say thank you again for taking the time this afternoon/evening to speak with us and to share your remarkable story, work, life, a little bit of your life. Thank you for letting us in. We really appreciate that.
Appreciate you, George, and appreciate PhotoNOLA and all our friends in New Orleans. In New Orleans, they put a picture of Freeman in the New Orleans Museum of Art for a while. That was, Freeman, you were hanging there in the big museum with the big wigs.
Hey.
Yeah. It was real special. So New Orleans is a great town. We love New Orleans, and our new friends and your Nobechi Creative, thank you for having us part of your family. It's been a great time to spend some time with you.
Well, we're incredibly honored that you would do this with us and spend time with us. And I'll be sure to spread the word out here as well in Japan. I'll see if I can do some subtitles maybe in Japanese.
Yeah.
For the audience over here to see. But we love New Orleans too, and miss it dearly, and can't wait to get back. Hopefully, universe willing soon. But in the meantime, it's great to be able to connect like this with everybody. Through this, the wonderful world of technology, I guess. Brings us closer.
I've learned I'll have to get Freeman a book. If you can suggest a book of photographs of trees of Japan. Okay. I'd love to purchase it and give it to Freeman so he can learn about how you guys think about trees. I didn't know Japan thought about trees like Freeman thought.
Yep.
It shows you how the human condition, we're all just one big family thinking about the same things. It's wonderful to hear this. There's more similarities than differences, I think, if we get together.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Yes, we'll make sure that happens. I'll go and do that next week. And Freeman, last word to you, sir, if you have anything you'd like to say. Thank you so much for doing this.
Now, just a matter of ticket to be gabbing with you and stuff then all over that way in Japan. I ain't never talked to no folks in Japan before. Mighty ticket I have done. Mighty ticket.
Well, on that note, thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. And hopefully we'll see you as well on Saturday for another great talk that we have lined up with Zalmai. So hope to see you then. Thank you. Take care. And yeah, we'll see you soon.
Yeah, you do the thing now. You and Tim both.
Yeah, take care, Freeman, and take care, George. And hello, New Orleans. I miss you guys.
Can I get it up?